Well, good. Okay. Well, we're going to move into our very next conversation, and you're going to stay on because we're going to now include Patricia Randolph, who's the Director of Curriculum and Instruction from Buckeye Union School. Hi, Patricia.
Hi.
Hi. So good to have you. You know, some of our good friends are like your sister district, Buckeye Union in Phoenix.
Hmm.
Are you familiar with them?
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Okay, well, we've been good friends with those guys. Every time we go to Phoenix with our, when we used to be able to do live events, we were always hosted by Buckeye Union in Phoenix. So now when I think of you, I automatically have a huge amount of admiration and affinity for you because of just the name. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yay!
That's a nice way to start a relationship.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, automatic. It's automatic. So we're going to just start then with you. We'll just start this new conversation now that'll also include Barbara, Dr. Nemko from Napa, about kind of the journey on digital transition. So, Patricia, do you want to give us a little background first? Kind of like what have you guys been through, and now what is your attention on?
Sure. So we are, I don't know if you know anything about our district, but we are Northern California, right outside of Sacramento. We have about 4,600 students. We started the year in distance learning. Well, let me back up a bit. We started when we all shut down with trying to do our best with distance learning. And I think I was on and off today listening to different topics you were talking about in that crazy, crazy world where everything out there possible was shared with us. And you can have a free trial of this and a free trial of that. And it was the wild, wild west of digital platforms. And, everybody was just trying to do their best. So when we did make the decision to start the school year in distance learning, one of the first things we did was we came to an agreement on what it was we were going to use. And we did go with Google Classroom as our platform and worked with our principals on making sure that it was all set up the same way. Because
Okay.
one of the complaints that came from parents was how challenging it was to navigate when they had a student that was in early elementary, someone that was in middle school, and even kids at the same school. Where do I find this stuff? How do I do this? How do I do that? So that was just trying to standardize, I guess, or sort of really simplify for everybody
Good.
how we were approaching that whole thing, because, simple is actually better. And then one of the big things that happened throughout all that was the collective teacher efficacy. I mean, this is something we have been working on as a district for years as one of our number one goals, is how are our grade level teams working together and supporting each other. And I'm lucky that I'm that person that gets to work directly with teachers. And so I have leadership groups where I check in with teachers from each of our sites. We have 8 schools. And over and over and over, the one thing I heard was, I couldn't do this job without my grade level team, that they've divided up the work. And it's almost like this pandemic has almost forced that to be a necessity. There's no way you could do all the distance learning and preparing for it without your team.
That is so great, Patricia, on so many levels, emotional, organizational structure dynamics. That is great on many levels.
Yeah, it was, I'm not saying this wasn't challenging. Like I heard Barbara mention, it's been very challenging. So then we went into, I believe it was, I can't even honestly remember the exact date, but the end of September, we went into hybrid learning. And so we are on an AM PM model, and we have been since then, and which is really exciting. Like when I first went out and was visiting schools, of course, I visited schools through Zoom and joined classrooms and could see real learning happening. I then actually getting out to schools in that physical space, the joy on kids' faces and the joy on teachers' faces and the comments they made to me over and over again. Patty, it feels so good to be back in the room with kids. And, I was listening to what you were talking about before. And the human connection is what this is all about. I mean, schools, learning is a human endeavor. And I just think it can't be said enough, just that being in that same space with kids, with teachers, that's where really the magic happens. That's where it happens, is in that space. So we've been in the hybrid AM PM model with a push to get to a more full schedule, but we were ready to go the beginning of February, and then we got the new directives from the state of California and had to put that on hold. And so it's like, we're, it's been, I think one of the challenges has been this constant state of anticipation of change. And it's almost like the anticipation of change is even more challenging than the change itself. Like, as we've gone to make a different change, there's all this anxiety. We make the change and it's like, okay. One of the teachers said to me, Patty, we are, we're pattern people. We've got a pattern of how the year goes. And we are people that like to predict what's next. And we're planners. And it's really challenging when I don't know what the next thing is. So anyway.
Well, I'm hoping that you don't dislike me after you see one of the articles that I just put out come out in our newsletter next week, because I am challenging those somewhat ancient organizational models. And I'm saying you got to get to this new technical plateau that is so much deeper than most districts and schools have gone to, so that you can highlight the humanity. Mm-hmm. Because I truly believe that we're overwhelming teachers like nobody's business. And I'm glad you chose Google and you standardized on it. But Google, in my mind, hopefully I can call you Patty now.
You can call me Patty. Sorry, I should have said that from the beginning. It is Patty. And listen, I'm not going to be mad at you because we already have a connection about Buckeye, so I know we're good.
Yeah, well, my thing is, guys, love them, but like no, because from a technical perspective, they're good for the communication function layer and the collection layer, but in terms of their purveyance of complex knowledge through a quality technical articulation of that piece of knowledge, the same way a book is different than a video, right? Now, when you move past raw text to video to full animation that you can click buttons in and do things in like a digital game, totally different world. And that world is the one world that frees up teacher time, but they're afraid of it because all of a sudden they don't get to direct all the attention. They don't get to be the sage on the stage every single second. Fear. Love them though. That's why I have attention on the role of the teacher being slowly led by leaders to go away from sage on the stage, away from the director of all attention, all the lesson building and the Googling around, to realizing that their most important role is human. And machines should do way more machine stuff in an ever spiraling upward motion of sophistication so that they can be more human. But we're holding on too closely to this whole group thing. This, I must be the leader of all the flock, and rather than letting. And so that's kind of where I'm going with that. So hopefully you don't hate me when that article comes out.
No, and I mean, I heard you say that earlier, that you said something in one of them, free teachers to be human. I love that idea because that's really what this is about. But I was in a kindergarten classroom last week, and a teacher, said to me, like, I'm struggling with the fact that they have to be 6 feet apart and these different, these different pieces to it. And she said, honestly, we're so well trained in small group instruction and being able to differentiate. I'm struggling with how to make that happen. And so we have in this district worked really hard on in person, getting at that differentiation. And so then now for them to think like, okay, now I'm going back to like everyone's 6 feet apart, and it's a challenge.
Well, not only that, but as soon as you mention kindergartners, first and second graders having to be 6 feet apart, I just want to bawl my head off.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, because it's not a human condition. Little kids love to run up on each other and hug each other and trip each other and fall down in a pile, right? We know this.
Yep.
I cannot imagine the long-term impact we're having on kids right now. Because I know the first thing happened when the pandemic happened, I had superintendents on from New York, and they were talking about the fact that, when they, and Utah first put on the kids on Zoom meetings, they all just got on the Zoom and cried just to see each other again. Right. Like I think that we should probably have somebody start to study the impact on this, because this is not human. This is not normal. I can understand where your kindergarten teacher's coming from, because I can't imagine keeping them apart 6 feet.
Well, in the new directives, it came out that we could open up our playgrounds, the playground equipment. And so I was at a school where that had just happened, was just opened, and it was like they come in this way, do some, hand sanitizing before they get on, hand sanitizing as they get off. Oh my gosh, the joy of watching them, play on that equipment was, it's what we all love to see with kids. Yeah, I agree with you. It's been challenging.
Yeah. Barbara, I know, I see your face. I think you're dying to say something now. So I want to call on you.
I'm just visualizing, because we do preschool, and our kids, keeping preschool kids apart is insane. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't tell them there's a pandemic and they might get sick. They don't understand that. Fortunately, we've learned something, because in the new regulations, we don't have to disinfect the playground every time 2 kids are on it, which was really crazy. But now the 6 feet was as practicable. The 4 feet was rigid. And I think you said that you're on AM, PM. Mm-hmm. So we've been on AM, PM. And the problem with trying to expand the day is, once you don't have AM, PM, but everybody's there together, you can't fit them 6 feet apart or 4 feet apart. So it isn't practicable, but that was rigid, although the governor has said very casually, well, we want to give you some flexibility in that. Well, you can't just say that. What do you mean you want to give us some flexibility? Does it mean 3.5 feet? Does it mean you're not going to look? You won't measure? What does it mean? We need to know. We have to operationalize it. You can't just throw out casual comments. And so I think we are revising our Napa County guidance for school reopening for the 57th time. And it's the amount of paperwork that we have had to do in all of this, on top of all the other paperwork that we do. I was thinking the other day that if I ever retire, which is questionable, that
don't do it.
I'm not. But if I ever did, what I would like to do is talk to state legislators that make the rules about how crazy it is every time they come up with a new thing that they want us to do, so that we can be held accountable. I wish they could be held as a quarter as accountable as we're always held to. They just make up stuff and we have to do it. And they don't understand how much time have you spent doing your LCAPs?
Yeah, I'll tell you a little secret. My uncle was a senator here in California. So, and most of my relatives were working high up in different departments in Sacramento. And I spent my early years down at the Capitol doing fundraising for various senators and assemblymen that my family worked for. And the secret is not the legislators. It's the people who write the legislation, who are all the associations around them. So that's where the power is. But we do have to get something going, like this new Declaration of Independence from Testing and a few other things. So yeah, Barbara, we're going to have like a little committee. We're going to form our own little thing.
It's really critical. Years and years ago, when they first came up with the idea of the SARC, the School Accountability Report Card, the idea was pretty much like putting a grade on a restaurant. It was supposed to be, you could look at it quickly and it got an A, B, C, or D and finished. So a parent could really look at it and choose this school over that school. And I was on the committee that was developing that first SARC, and I think it probably was a one-pager, maybe two, and it became an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Over the last 2 decades, it became literally an encyclopedia. So no parent is ever going to read the SARC to decide what school they want their child to attend. And they just keep piling on, piling on. They never take anything away. They just add more. And so you think about the amount of time, staff time and money, and the people that have to be hired to do all of this, that takes away from what we should be doing, which is connecting with kids and helping them learn.
Exactly. So I think what's really great, and both of you guys, I want you guys to comment on this. And Doug is going to tell me if Michael joins us, he might, who knows, maybe Michael got pulled off into something else. Really
I texted him and he said he's dealing with some issues. And I said, but you're on the panel. But you know, when you're dealing with issues, you're dealing with issues.
Well, I can ask him to do a podcast with me later. So if he doesn't arrive, we have plenty to talk about. What was I going to say? So, I think, we're living in a revolutionary moment. Let's take advantage of that. Mm-hmm. Let's sort of put the screws back to everyone else. Like, I'm not going to do that report. I don't have time. Don't you realize? Blah, 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 blah. I'm not doing it. So we can give pushback right now, but we also can realize that we can take advantage of the moment we're in to truly change things. Yes. And what's been so great about what you guys have both said so far is that you've both spotted the right things. The humanity is huge. It possibly is more than 50% of our real work that we never knew was really our real work. And so technology has to start doing the rest of the work so that we can do what we were really here in the first place to do. And the rest of it's like, let's the technology do it. Hey, state government, on the testing thing, can we automate a lot of that stuff? Like, isn't there a way to do this better? Right? Like, don't take away their little pet horse that they like to ride around, which is testing and accountability. Make them do it a different way. And quite a few other things. But I think we can use this revolution at the teaching level all the way up. So, Patricia, I'm going to come to you first. What are your thoughts on using this moment to really change more? Like, as a leader, what are you thinking?
What am I thinking about really changing more? Honestly, that's still like in the back of I don't have something that I could articulate. I think I'm still in that space of thinking about connections and students and learning and what's really happening in a classroom and what's next. Yeah, I don't really have an answer for that.
But now I've challenged you, and now you're not going to be able to sleep at night. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Patty, you're like, you're not my friend anymore. Like,
no, it is a big question of like, so what is this giving us as an opportunity? What kind of doors is opening for us that wasn't available before? I mean, for one thing, just the fact that we can have meetings and I can do a half an hour meeting through Zoom, and I don't have to wait for people to travel to meet with me. I don't have, there's some things that are just a simple something like that doesn't take a full day, quick, let's all get on in a half an hour. Let's be really purposeful with our time. Let's nail this conversation on this and, move on.
Yeah, I think, we start there. Like, everything changed, and now we can change a lot of other things. We have like a cascading change occurring, right? Like, so how do we guide that as leaders? What are your thoughts, Barbara?
Here's one. It is crazy that people get their training to be a teacher at institutions of higher education taught by people who do research and do not teach, many of whom are older than dirt and probably had no technology at all when they were teaching, which was back decades ago.
Yeah.
Research is lovely, but we need people who are able to work in a practical sense and know how to use the tools we have now. We should let districts certify our teachers, not a commission, and they should be able to do much of their work in the schools so that not only would they then be much better teachers because they'd be learning from people who have really practiced the craft and are good at it, but in addition, they would be very hireable by the district that trained them. So it would take a lot of the difficulty of finding the right job out because they would know where they fit. And we've talked about this for years, and yet we still do it the same way.
Yeah, in all my years doing this so far, there's only been 2 cities where universities with teaching colleges sent attendees to my events.
Yeah.
And their minds were blown. They're like, holy cow, we didn't know it was so different. I'm like, get your act together, man. Cause your teachers are going into the lion's den and they're getting blown up. They come fresh out of college with all these ideas. They're all whole group oriented. They don't use technology. They're totally 100% indoctrinated in the idea of being the sage on the stage.
Right.
Like this is so 20 years ago now. Like really?
That was such a shock. It was because we thought that young people coming into teaching who are so proficient with technology would just seamlessly integrate it into their teaching, but that didn't happen. They're seamless with their personal technology, but they're teaching the way they were taught.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of silly and ridiculous. And yeah, we need to do something about that too. Okay, so my list is starting to stack up here now, Barbara. What are you doing to me? What are you doing? I have so much other stuff going on. Okay, so I really want to talk about logistics with you guys for a second because I got into this a little bit in the session before this one, where I brought up with Ben and I also brought up with Lambersville yesterday and with San Juan Unified and the other districts that have been with us so far. We're in a logistics issue now, like the issue of the transition away from whole group to an alternating schedule. You've got AM, PM, Patty. Mm-hmm. Other places are going like AB weeks, AB days, everybody off on Friday. And then this person, this group in the building here and this group over there. And then I'm hearing in the industry and software, hey, like Scholastic Digital, they auto cohort magically within the software, right? So this group is moving ahead at this pace and these ones are going over here. And the teacher looks at the dashboard and goes, well, those ones are moving slow. I got to swoop in. We're living in a different time of logistics and the planning being done in the districts and the schools. Here's the way it goes. Standards, big giant Common Core, blah, 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 comes down in the district says, I'll take these 2 math standards for 6th grade and those are week 1. Then the teacher looks at that PDF or the Google Doc with this where the standards are going, looks over at the learning management system, looks over at the other folders where they got all their widgety things, looks at their application stack, and then tries to manipulate that into a sequence for one lesson. It's a mess. Mm-hmm. So the organizational structure of all those things, I'm taking it on intellectually. The logistics is the mountain to climb. It is a mess. And so talk to me about what your thoughts are on that logistics scene. Because if you just look at the job, if you like stand in the shoes of the teacher and then also in the shoes of the administration on the logistics scene of time, lesson, schedule, the mutation, kids are gone, kids are on campus, blah, blah. I don't know anybody else dealing with this except maybe Amazon and FedEx at this and the airline industry at this level of logistics. This is hard. So, Dr. Nemko, you first.
It's really hard to know because one of the core purposes of public education has always been childcare, that it gave kids a safe place to go so that their parents could leave the house and go to work.
Yeah.
And that got totally,
yeah. Go ahead.
That got totally upended because now we're not doing that. We're not providing that service anymore. I think as we are going to see a profound shift in how work is done, because until this, we didn't quite believe work could be accomplished from home. I think we all had a vision of people taking really big advantage and hanging out and drinking beer and not getting their work done. And yet, amazingly, all the functions of the office have gone on. All the functions of the school districts have gone on. It is possible. So I think many parents will no longer have to leave the house and commute long distances, and childcare may no longer be that core part of our function, in which case we would be open to very different kinds of logistics, because kids would not have to be in the physical building all day long if we're not trying to keep them safe and supervise them. So I don't know. This is sort of beyond my feeble brain to figure out what it's going to look like.
Well, yeah, well, I'm looking at it the same way you are. But then in my mind, I flipped to that other conversation we already had about the social aspects and the fact that you want to also have that. Okay, so now you got to try to blend these two universes instead of thinking of like, here's the online kids and they're a little weird, they're not very social. And then here's the kids who go to physical school, and let's do them both, which is what Lammersville was talking about. That was what Ben was talking about. He somehow figured out the logistics of doing both. Wow, that's like amazing. So I only want to be on campus one day a week, and then I want to go to prom and be on the sports team. Okay, let's figure that out for you. So that's what I'm talking about, Barbara. That's like the future.
Can I ask a question about that? Obviously, I missed that session. So is that for high school students, or is that for elementary students as well?
Well, what's exciting about him is that he's 9 through 12, but they're right now figuring out K through 8.
Okay.
So of course I'm going to pin him down on that as soon as I can.
Yeah.
Because that's truly, truly amazing. So he started on that session and it'll come out on video in about a week and a half from us, because we have to go through all the editing. But he's talking about units. And once they fill up to 35 students, then you have to reunit, another teacher assigned, blah, blah, blah. So he doesn't divorce the teachers from the online, right? And how many units they have. And then students can navigate like, well, this hour I want to do this in an online. And then these ones I want to have a physical arrival there. But then I'm maybe a kid's farther away and I want to do mostly online and very little physical arrival. Wow, talk about flexibility. That kind of blows my mind. And that's what I'm saying when I talk about logistics is flexibility, personalization around the individual student needs. And I think baby step one is take what we're doing now, break it up and redo it so that it's highly flexible, but not sort of try to be all competency based and not lose the human teachers, not try to go all the way to the nth level of thinking like you, Barbara, have already done, which is the network matrix of alternate teachers from other parts of the universe doing this perfect algebra lesson. But just start with what we already have, break it up and redo that. What are your thoughts on that, Patty?
Yeah, well, I can see that. I can see that working with high school students, and we're a K-8 district. And so as you're describing that, I'm trying to wrap my brain around, thinking of our kindergarten, first, second graders and the phonics instruction and just that, just that relationship that young kids have with their teacher is being so critical, and that in the younger grades, it's the relationship with the teacher. And as they move into middle school, it's the relationship with their peers.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, because there's a ratio of socialness. Mm-hmm. The younger you go, that is a broader part of the day. When I was in kindergarten, I think I only went to school for the socialness and being able to be the nap time
flag carrier.
Yeah.
Who gets to go get the graham crackers and milk?
Yeah.
That's what I was into. Patty, I went for the cookies and milk.
Yeah.
That's the best.
Exactly. I guess I just keep thinking about just child development and that connection that kids have at those very young ages with their teacher and with each other, and being, like I said, in that physical space, like I shared earlier. Not to say that there isn't absolutely a need for, here I am as a kid and I'm interested in this, and how do I have time during my day where I can access something I really want to learn about, and I have that choice to have that time to delve into that.
Yeah. And I think we're going to have to think through the differentiation, but that mountain of altered logistics, altered space and time is where our attention is as Learning Council research. right now. That's really all we want to talk about, which is boring for everyone else because they're like, what are you talking about?
I think because when you say logistics, I'm thinking like, okay, how are we getting, them from point A to point B? How are they getting from the car into the building? What's the safety, procedures that have to be in place to check in, to, all those are the logistics we're actually dealing with now. Is just how do they walk out to recess and all of those things.
Yeah. And I'm thinking that's part of it, right? But there's also the part with like now they're logging into Achieve 3000 and now they're logging into Dreambox and now they're doing this over here with IXL learning and Brain Pop and blah, blah, blah. And now they're intersecting with the teacher for a live whole group. And now they have a lab over here with a small group. And it's a fractured map. Like some kids are in this small group at this time and then they're in that one over there. How do you do that? Well, the big logistics thinkers in Federal Express can get a package anywhere in the world in 24 hours. There's got to be a better way to do this so that it's totally personalized. Anyway, so that's kind of what I'm thinking with. What I really want to do now is have our audience jump in and start talking with you too, because Patricia, you have that on the ground experience in a school, and Dr. Nemko's got the leadership level of like, how do you run the whole operation? So audience, let's start talking. And if you don't talk, I'm going to call on you to make your comment or question about everything we've been talking about this, because I'm one of those mean teachers, making you speak. And I know I haven't heard from Nicole Smith for a long time from ClassLink, and she has kids at home as well. Nicole, I'm going to ask you to unmute, see if you're still there.
Translators and interpreters.
Okay, anybody else is already unmuted? You want to say something? I don't know if you know your mic is on, then your time to talk. So I'm checking on my panelists, who's unmuted, who isn't muted, making sure okay, so they're all okay to talk. So if you're on the line right now, you've been allowed to talk universally. I don't know where the button is for that, but somebody who works with me does. So asking you kind of make yourself known. I think LM is unmuted.
Yes, yes, this is Luz.
Okay.
Could I talk about anything?
Yeah, bring up your comment.
Of course, related to education. I wanted to say that I have noticed in high schoolers, I have a junior girl, there is these mental issues. They feel, of course, isolated. And the first year, that was when we lived here in Tampa, Florida. We used to live in Sacramento. We lived there for 10 years, longer. Yes, 10 years. And so we have an attachment to Sacramento. My daughter was in kindergarten there, and she was there till the first junior year, junior high, middle school. And now she's a junior in high school. We left Sacramento in 2015. But the point is that now in high school, she commented to me that in May of last year, everything was okay. Then they had the summer, and they were with the thought that they would return to school. But then started again the quarantine, and we saw that things were more serious, and even we had close friends who got sick. So we decided to have her with e-learning, and she begged me to take her to a girlfriend's home. So this is her best friend. So they could be together and chat for 2 hours, watch TV. I know this girl, she has come to my home also. I know her parents, and we know each other very well. So my daughter goes there, and every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, she meet with her friend, although they are also in contact also with the chats, and they have a group. My daughter is an AP student. She's very aware of what she wants to be in the future and what all the effort she has to make now.
So Luz, is your point that there's been a big loss for this student, like emotional loss that's now maybe affecting her?
Well,
Okay.
my daughter is feeling well,
Okay.
because I talk to her every day, but she has commented to me about other friends.
Yeah, I just want to.
Yeah, okay, about that. Okay.
Yeah.
The point is that at school, when they had the presential classes, when all was normal, these mental issues where students want to suicide is more frequent. And I don't know what principals should better do, because they have a special people who go to school and give a speech to students. And the students in their minds always say, because they have commented that to me, oh, this is always the same, nothing will change. They only say blah, 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 but they really don't care. So what students of high school here in Tampa, Florida have in mind, why I'm talking about this region, is that really principals especially don't care. They are just, I am saying this to you because it's important that you know.
Okay, so Luz, so let me have them answer that, because you're basically talking about a leadership issue, that the people who are the touch points to the students are expressing themselves and connecting in a much deeper level right now. Because I do know, we don't like to bring it up, Luz, suicide's on the rise in the student population.
Yes.
We don't like to bring it up, but it is true. So I'm gonna put you on hold right now and have Barbara and Patricia both respond to that.
That was my.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Barbara?
I think we are all very aware that the suicide rate has gone up, particularly among high school students. But it's been an issue for a long time, both bullying and suicide. And I think, again, that's one of the things we haven't prioritized. You know, we talk about it, we have to prevent bullying, but we don't really, as your caller said, we don't really reach out to kids, certainly from the top administrator levels. Maybe the teacher will, the principal may not. But I think we can find ways to make it part of the curriculum. And I'll give you an example. There's something in New York called the Socially Relevant Film Festival. And I was invited to buy a ticket and by an old college friend. And I watched a movie called Butter, which is about a high school boy who is obese and is tormented by bullies in his high school. And in order to get out from under this, he decides he's had it, and he announces on Facebook that he's going to kill himself by eating himself to death on Facebook Live on New Year's Eve. So it was, you remember 13 Reasons Why? That was a very interesting piece on Netflix that had 2 or 3 seasons that talked about teen suicide. I think we need to bring those kinds of things into schools. So we actually have started piloting the movie Butter we did it in a continuation school before the holiday, and now we're going to roll it out to the rest of the community in the spring and make that part of the curriculum, whether it's PE curriculum or a peer mentor curriculum, but teach it with teachers involved and having discussions. The nice thing is, because it's a movie, it doesn't have to go, it doesn't have to be a 6-week unit. It can be a unit that you do in a week and a half. And we even developed a teacher guide for it. We got a group of teachers together and we have curriculum. So I think that's what we need to do. We need to prioritize it. Maybe there are some of the books on the English core list that might be eliminated to make a space for a book like this and a movie like this. and really, really try to put people in the shoes of these characters, because many high schoolers are bullied. You don't have to be obese to be bullied. Kids can be brutal to one another, and we need to teach both empathy and how to deal with it in a healthy way.
We can't hear you, Lilani.
I muted because I thought something was happening in the background with one of my dogs. Okay, so I think those are really great ideas embedded in the curriculum. So Patty, over to you. Like,
So
of the caring and stuff.
So this is, I think from a preventive standpoint, we've been working over the last few years on the whole idea of I notice you, and making sure that all of our students are noticed by someone. So we've had our middle schools take class lists, put them up around the multipurpose room as a PD session, and go through and mark those lists. Do you know who this kid is? And so they mark whether or not they know them. And do you know something about them that is not about their grade or academic, something personal you know about them? And once they've done that, they've then identified who are those students that nobody is noticing. And then they take those students, and everyone chooses, like, okay, so who are we going to make sure we're making a connection with? And so this is something we've been doing the last few years of, like, really, how do you go about making sure kids feel connected? And it's one thing to say, oh yeah, I'm so, I notice all the kids in my class. Well, what we found is teachers were noticing the same kids, and the same kids were sort of not being noticed. And as I spent 28 years in the classroom myself, and the students that I was always the most concerned about were the quiet ones. Who's not asking for your attention? Who's not like, hey, look at me? They get attention. So this is a strategy that we've used at each of our sites to identify, what do you know about that kid? And then there's that strategy of 2 by 10, like you take 2 of your students that maybe aren't noticed and spend 10 minutes a day, or is it, 10 minutes a day, just talking to them about nothing that has to do with your language arts assignment or your math assignment, just talking to them as a human being.
Yeah, that's the theory, is any communication is better than no communication. Any. And I actually think that part that you just said right there is more important as a job for all of schools everywhere and every teacher than any other job we could be doing right now. Yeah. So I think this is a robust and fantastic conversation. And I really want to, just see if there's anything else the two of you really wanted to say. It looks like we missed Michael today. Miss you, Michael, but he didn't make it on. We'll have to ask him to participate in some other way, in some other event that we're going to do. But I want to roll back to your importances, and let's leave us off this last topic, which kind of is like sad. It true, but sad. And let's go into like the fact that right now, despite the fact that a global pandemic occurs and is still occurring, kids are learning. There is learning going on. Barbara, 30 years ago, would this be happening? No, we'd be sending packets home, and that's it. So we are better than we ever thought we could possibly be in the circumstances that we're in right now. And our economy didn't totally collapse. Somehow people like me, other companies all over the country, just decided we're all going to work from home, and we held the roof up, right? We're still holding the roof up. There's so much more positive in what we've done. Every school in America, every teacher in America went to war on this thing. Then there's possible negative. I just want to make sure we all leave on this note. So your thoughts on that positivity note?
Well, interestingly, and this kind of bridges what we were just talking about and what you're talking about, we have a program that we've had for about 25 years called If Given a Chance. And it's kids who have overcome some really serious obstacle in their lives, whether it's poverty or abuse or neglect or drug addiction, whatever. and we provide scholarships for them to go on to community college or college. And as part of that, somebody nominates them. It can be a parent, a teacher, a friend, a colleague, or themselves. They write an essay about what they've overcome. And then we select scholarship winners and we throw a big dinner for them, attended by about 250 of all the local elected officials and mucky mucks. So this year, couldn't do it that way. Can't have a big banquet. So we had it online, and they made 3 times as much money as they ever made before.
Wow.
So one of the things that has happened, as you pointed out, Leilani, is that people are stepping up because they know how dire the situation is. So people gave more at this virtual fundraiser where we all popped in front of the camera. Yeah, took off my mask. Here I am. Hello. And then put my mask on, pop back off, 6 feet apart, all this. People still came and gave. And that's the kind of thing that I have found has happened in all of the various fundraisers that have gone on this year. People have given more. So I think we need to raise this as the #1 priority. And there are other things we can do. Some high schools assign a teacher to 10 kids who come in as freshmen, and they keep those 10 kids the entire 4 years. And
like a house leader, like on Harry Potter World.
right.
I love that. I love that.
So just call, as you say, to check in maybe once a month. Hi, how are you, Leilani? What's going on? Who you hanging with? See any good movies? Just because we know all the research says that a child can overcome almost anything if there is one positive adult in his life. And that can be a teacher or a counselor or an aunt or a grandmother or even a next door neighbor. So we should be using the power of those of us in education who came into it because we care about kids to be doing things like that.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. Okay, so Patty, final words on that.
So I just think my final words would be that really throughout all of this, I think what we're all learning is connections matter most. People, the people throughout all this, your colleagues, the students, it's the people that matter most. And so just finding those ways to stay connected and supporting the people that are out there. And I think you mentioned earlier just that loss that we feel of not having that opportunity to connect. And I think it's actually made us realize more than ever that what we do is about the human connection. And we just need to keep looking for ways to keep that part going. And like you said, the learning is happening. I don't know if any of you have seen the TED Talk by Rita Pearson. She did a beautiful, if you haven't seen it, please go on and watch it. And she talks about Rita Pearson, Rita Pearson did a TED Talk that I've shared with many staffs. And she talks about this whole idea about kids aren't going to learn from people they don't like. Like we need to make sure we've got that connection going for kids.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to leave it. We're rearranging our minds, and this adversity has made us stronger, which is really positive. Okay, somebody put the
chat box.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to thank you guys profusely for sharing with us in this wonderful hour of discussion, and I think people really enjoyed it, and my whole audience will enjoy it when we put it out as a video. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Leilani. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice to have met you and have a new friend.
Yeah, yay, Patty. And we're both living in the same town, so maybe someday we get to meet in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're socially distanced by miles right now, but maybe someday.
Okay.
But yeah, so good. Well, thank you. And I want to thank the whole audience for being with us today. It's been a fantastic event. Yesterday was really fantastic as well for the Northern California event. These are our sponsors. Let's thank them again, for being with us on this particular event. And I think I did that right. Maybe I'm on the wrong slide. Hold on a second. I got to go back to the right slide. To the correct list of sponsors. Yeah, here we are. This is the right one. Coasters was on there. They're a lovely company. Love these guys. Identity Automation, Lightspeed, Scholastic, ClassLink, Achieve 3000, and No Story. So I want to thank those guys and Northern California for being with us once again. Hopefully someday we get to be with you in person again, which was awesome back in the day. But here we are at the end of our event for Northern California. Wishing you all farewell and keep going. Keep the faith. Keep the roof up.
Same
Proud
to
of you.
Same
Proud
to
of you. All right. Okay. Bye for now, everyone.